And welcome back to Zanpakuto Creation Series. Today's Zanpakuto Creation Series suggestion comes to us from Gamer Forever, who asked the question, what is Anakin Skywalker's Zanpakuto? Star Wars characters, particularly Jedi, are very, and Sith to some degree, are unique in this because we know the Force is spiritual to a degree. It's an energy field that binds all living things, surrounds us. Created by all living things. It surrounds us. It binds the universe together. But it does have a spiritual nature, hence Force ghosts. And we know that because the Zanpakuto is a reflection of your soul, it is you basically, just you in a sword form, that should theoretically play a part in a Jedi or Sith's Zanpakuto. Anakin obviously is a very unique case here because Anakin, if we're looking at Anakin by the end of the series, if he were to theoretically come back into the fray, be a Shinigami, whatever, was firmly in the light but had dark side tendencies, went to the dark side, and then was saved and brought back into the light. So this is a guy who now straddles the line, really, when you think about it. So what could I do? Add on the fact that he does have a very bit of an aggressive, straightforward personality. I'm like, okay, at first I'm kind of like a melee Keto type, similar like what Ichigo has. Ichigo Zanpakuto is predominantly a melee type, but it has a Keto ability. Technically it doesn't have a Keto. It's not technically Keto, but let's be honest, it's Keto. So it does have one ability. So I was thinking for something like that, but I'm like, no. Because honestly, believe it or not, Anakin's personality isn't too far off. It is different, but it's not too far off from someone like Toshiro's, who is very cold, very calculating, very serious and stern, but also has a serious rage problem. But yet, Toshiro has a pretty bad temper when you really break it down, especially when it comes to Momo, which, tie that to Padme, and there you go. Now, granted, Toshiro is a lot more humorless than Anakin. Anakin could still crack jokes and has a sense of humor and a bit more personality. But still, I liken those guys a bit. And Toshiro has an ice type, the strongest ice type Zanpakuto. Now, I don't think it's a one-on-one there. I think Anakin leans more towards dark fire or something like that, but not even so. So what does he have? Well, as you can probably guess, he has an elemental type. It's a katana in standard form. Its release command is simply this: set Black Sun, or Kurotayo. Its Bankai is Black Sun Eclipse. So Kurotayo Nishoku. The spirit of his Zanpakuto, I think, would be I think something akin to DC's Destiny, the member of the Endless Destiny. I think something basically kind of like a hooded figure you could see the face, and it could very well be a guy, but I actually think it'd be more likely that's a woman, because his mother was his biggest influence on his life. And I think you could see, and I think really in its Shikai, the woman has black hair, but in its Bankai, the woman has white hair. And the reason for that is very simple. The Zanpakuto, basically, it turns kind of into a lightsaber to a degree. It basically absorbs light from the surroundings. The surroundings seem to actually get darker as it absorbs light. The blade itself is black, glowing black with the white outline, looking very similar to the Darksaber, actually. But what it does is it releases basically dark energy abilities. It's manipulating darkness itself. Similar to something like Ichimonji does, but Ichimonji uses it in a very different way. Here we're looking at basically just similar to a fire type, or using the element to your advantage. These dark energy blasts have multiple abilities. You could inspire something akin to a Getsuga. You could theoretically create a shield. Now, Anakin's, I think, is a lot more straightforward. He uses his Zanpakuto in an offensive manner most of the time. This is just due to the fact that he's a bit more, he's not very defensive. He can be defensive, but he's not a defensive player. There are defensive abilities with his Zanpakuto, technically speaking. He just goes more for the offensive type of abilities. And the more he swings his sword, the more he absorbs light in the surrounding area. Again, it almost seems like the light dims, but it never really does, as long as he's out out in the day, because the sun is constantly there shining. But at the same time, if say it's at night, then it almost goes into pitch blackness, where you only see the white outline of the blade. Anakin, though, Anakin would be immune to this ability, or he can use an ability and learn to use an ability like what Tozen does to technically, quote unquote, see. Basically, kind of like an echolocation ability. The Bankai, though. Somebody you see, like, Luke, I think, in the New Hope poster, holding the lightsaber up to the sky. Anakin would hold the lightsaber up to the sky, yell, Bankai! Bankai! Kurotayo Nishoku. And all the energy he's been absorbing into the blade, all the light, everything goes up to the sky and literally blots out the sun. It turns into basically, instead of a black sphere, it's a stark white sphere with a black outline instead. It's basically the inverse because we're going with an eclipse theme here. That the darkness that's in him is fueled by the light. And now that light is surrounded by darkness instead, to represent the fact that he has been on both sides. And now it's believed he might be the new father, like in between of the Force, because of Ahsoka. But it's to represent the balance and the true power that in the end he is a man of good. He is a guy who follows the right and the light. And this giant orb, which has been feeding on light this whole time, plus probably a lot of his own Ryatsu as well, what it does is simply all the effects of his Zanpakuto enhanced to the degree, but instead of absorbing light, it absorbs shadow to fuel and strengthen the light and increase it until he could fire a giant energy beam of everything there. He could just take energy from it, use it as he will or does. The Bankai is constantly absorbing shadows around them too, including the shadow it makes. Although technically speaking, because it's a ball of light, it can't make a shadow. So it's absorbing shadow. Anakin, in theory, could then return. It has a couple finishing moves he can do with it. He can just throw it like a giant freeze a death ball or spirit bomb. He can contain all of it into his blade for one final strike, like Ichigo did against Byakuga, and it could be like the final strike. He could, unleash it in a wave of energy. He can just take bits of energy and manipulate it, fight with like multiple projectiles at once. There is many things he can do with this type of attack, with this type of ability. And then when it's all used up, his Bankai is pretty much over, or if it's overpowered. So what would be the inherent weaknesses of a Zanpakuto like this? Well, for start, as always, Ryatsu versus Ryatsu, get that out of the way. But there's also counters to such as Zanpakuto. For instance, Ichimonji is a perfect, and technically speaking, Ichibei himself, because his power is darkness. But Ichimonji is technically a perfect counter to this because it feeds on the black all in the universe. Excuse me. So anything that theoretically absorbs darkness or absorbs light too, because there's light and darkness in both of these Zanpakuto, or in both the Shikai and Bankai. So anything that absorbs light, douses light, absorbs shadow, or removes shadow, anything that is so bright that even the shadow around the orb can't contain it, that would be something too. If you would theoretically figure out a way to break the shadowed dome or shadowed light around the ball, then you would be able to basically disperse the Bankai's overall effect. Beyond that, though, anyone durable enough to just take the hits and keep going, like a Kenpachi and Aizen, those kind of guys, Yamamoto, they'd be perfectly capable. The Bankai, as I said, would rely a little bit on being active for a while, continually absorbing light, and then releasing it. Add it on to whatever released energy you are releasing into it. Beyond that, though, there wouldn't be too much. Like I said, the Shikai, in theory, could suffer if it's being used at night because absorbing all the light in the surrounding areas is actually causing the area to go black. Now, if this does not affect the user, that's fine. But I like the idea that it does affect the user. It's something that the user has to kind of prepare for and kind of extend their senses out for. So I do like that kind of idea. Beyond that, though, again, it's all about, greater Ryatsu versus greater Ryatsu, all that kind of stuff. Energy absorption techniques. Again, as I mentioned with last week's Zanpakuto with Cad Bane, Ukitake's Sogyo no wa Kotowari, which absorbs attacks and redirects them, would be a perfect counter to a Zanpakuto like this. So, or Ryujukoro would be another one. Ryukujaku would be another Zanpakuto that is perfectly tailored to counter a Zanpakuto like this. Either way, that is my thoughts on that, though. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you folks for the next one. Later.